inspired thousands. Some people, no matter how hard they work, will never truly be given.
Hey guys, it's Holly here. And before we jump into today's show, I wanted to tell you about an amazing resource that our friends at Generis created. You might remember a couple weeks ago, we had Jim Shepard on the show, the CEO of Generis. They've put together a free guide to annual giving statements. This is a project that many church leaders dread every January. So they've created a guide to help make that process easier. So hop over to vandercast.com. That's vandercast.com to download the free guide. Okay, let's jump into today's show. Welcome to the Vanderbloemen Leadership Podcast, where we talk about how to build, run, and keep a great team. I'm your host, Holly Tate. And on today's episode, William talks with Chris Brown, a national speaker on biblical stewardship as a part of Dave Ramsey's team. And before that, he was an executive pastor and CFO at Potential Church in Florida. Be sure to tweet your takeaways with us using the hashtag Vandercast. That's hashtag Vandercast. Let's jump in.
Chris, we're delighted to have you here today. I thought I'd give our listeners a little bit of background. Folks may not know that we actually had the honor of helping the folks at Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions find you and put you in this new position you've been in. And it's just been great to hear how well you're doing. Thanks for circling back with us and now letting us interview about your work there.
Oh, thank you so much.
So tell me what you've been up to on Dave's team. You've accomplished a whole lot in just a couple of years.
Yeah, so I am raising the banner of stewardship all over the country, especially in the church world. And stewardship meaning managing God's blessings, God's way for God's glory. Not, environmentalism and not fundraising, but this whole idea of God owns it all and we are the managers. And so I'm trying to make sure that that's very, very clear around the country. We have a great website, stewardship.com for the pew. And we've got a great website for leaders also for the pulpit, and that's stewardshipcentral.org. And so a lot of things live there, a lot of resources, a lot of articles, a lot of interviews, just the best practices when it comes to stewardship. And then in addition to that, we have a leadership podcast that it's called the Leadership Momentum Podcast. That's about 6 episodes in. It's once a month, and we interview the most respected names in the church world to ask them about their expertise. And then there's a radio show, a daily call-in radio show to help people with their finances. It's called Chris Brown's True Stewardship. It's actually a radio show in 20 different cities all over the country, and also has a podcast. Again, that's Chris Brown's True Stewardship.
That's awesome. And what are you seeing as the response from the church to having another radio show about stewardship? I mean, tell me, like, first of all, how is this show different from Dave being on the radio in 9 bajillion cities? And what's the response been as you've launched it? Because I know the story, but I'd love to hear you tell it.
Yeah, well, I'm the gentler and kinder Dave Ramsey. Around here, we call me the Christian Dave. But the idea is he's on secular radio, I'm on Christian radio, and so it allows us to be able to penetrate 2 different audiences and to be able to serve them. So that's kind of the main difference. Mine's 25 minutes a day. His is 3 hours a day. And it is very similar format. It's a call-in show. But instead of his being biblically based, because of the nature of his environment that he's broadcasting to, mine is biblically centered. So I'll lead out with Scripture and what the Bible says and be a little bit more, just progressive when it comes to that. So I'll make sure that everyone knows the verse that goes with the concept, and that's the key difference.
That's awesome. And the response, how's it been?
It's been incredible. The station managers and the Salem Media Group just have been very, very excited. Listenership is way beyond what our expectations were, and we're very, very close to 1 million downloads on the podcast.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah. That's awesome. So what I'd like to focus on a little bit today is kind of what it's like to work at Dave Ramsey. We, as you know, and maybe our listeners know, we have had the honor of helping Dave find some key staff people over the years. You were actually the first person we put there, and it seems to be working out for everybody. So what's it like to go there? I mean, tell me about the culture of the place and what makes it maybe different than other places you've worked before.
Yeah, well, I read Entree Leadership. That's Dave's leadership book. The whole idea is entree is entrepreneur. There's lots of great characteristics to an entrepreneur: risk taker, bold, just creative, get after it kind of person. And then a leader is a little bit more, provides clarity, structure, and all of those, what he says are kind of more boring things, organizational behavior and that kind of stuff. And it's the entree leader, it's the combination of two. It doesn't mean that one has to be, they have to be mutually exclusive. So I read the book, loved the book years ago. And now that I'm here, I'm realizing that he really is smoking what he's selling. This place is textbook. I mean, from a clarity to making sure the infrastructure is right, but still taking ground, doing it in a sustainable and scalable way. The succession plan, which I know is a passion of yours, you name it. It is a super impressive organization. I'm feeling challenged every day, but at the same time, challenged in a way where I feel encouraged, I feel equipped, I feel empowered. It's super impressive.
That's awesome. I have watched Dave's organization for a while now. In fact, people may not know this, but when we first started the company and decided when we grew enough where we had to actually hire somebody besides just Adrian and me and the card table we started on, we went to Entree Leadership back when it was a little smaller deal and it was a little easier to access everybody. We got a full week with everybody on the senior staff, including Dave, and if we end up, if 100 years from now this ends up being a success story as a company, you can draw a straight line back to Entree Leadership.
Oh, wow.
And if, in fact, if you're a church planter out there listening today and you're trying to figure out, because you are an entrepreneur if you're a church planter, or you're just crazy, which is possible. And if you're going to make it, you can't just be an entrepreneur. You can't just bend reality to your will. You have to add some leadership. I would strongly encourage you to get that book and read it. It will make a huge difference in how you set up your culture and that sort of thing. And Dave's place, you guys run hard and fast, but you do a lot of fun things too, right? Maybe you could share with us some of the fun that's injected into your culture and give some pastors ideas for things they could do with their teams. Yeah,
well, Lencioni talks all about values, and there's some that are implied values, some that are more formal, but one of our implied values is humor. We've got humor just really intertwined throughout anything that we do, whether it be an event or whether it be a curriculum. But humor is part of any kind of talk that we do or any kind of article that we write. So humor really creates this fun environment. In addition to that, there's very strategic ways. I mean, now we're 500 team members. And there's very strategic ways to make sure that we're all still doing life together. Are we all best friends? No, we don't have time to all be best friends. We're all getting after it. But we all have this camaraderie. We're trying to keep this crusader mindset. And so that takes a lot of strategy and even a lot of dollars. It takes a lot of, and if I were to give any kind of advice to a church leader out there, you've got to make sure that you have dollars put aside for unity, for clarity. I mean, the amount of money we spend on meetings, like large 500-person meetings, is in the millions. Tremendous amount of money spent on clarity, direction, and sometimes it's just flat out fun. We have Battle of the Bands in the summer where we have we're in Nashville, so everyone's played an instrument before and they're all amazing. So we'll have Battle of the Bands, we'll have watermelon seed spitting contests, cornhole, food trucks. We're always doing something. Yeah, I saw the other day you guys, did you have a spelling bee? Yes. Yeah, we do a spelling bee, and usually the content team or the publishing team wins that because obviously they're wordsmithing every day. But it's pretty impressive what they can spell. I'm usually out in the first round. We're spelling the. and there was a payoff for winning the spelling bee, right? Yeah. I think they get, I forget what they get, but I think it's a couple $1,000s for their team to share, or they go out to dinner or something like that. But it's all, based around camaraderie. They go out to dinner together, go on a mini getaway together or something. And if you guys out there listening are not able to, you're like, I don't have millions of dollars. We don't have a food truck. We're in Cumming, Georgia. There's no food truck in Cumming, Georgia. What are you going to do? You can do things like millennials. If you've got anybody younger on your staff,
almost always, the polls and studies show they favor having time off more than a little bit more money.
That's good.
So, do a spelling bee and give your people an extra half day or day off if they win. Something that there are small things you can do that don't cost a lot of money that will inject fun into your culture. And, when you're out trying to save the world, which is what church leaders are trying to do, it can get a little intense and the fun can wear off a little bit. So I just encourage you to think creatively about how you can build fun into the culture. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, now that you've been there a while, what makes the place different than other places you've worked?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there's tremendous clarity, and I think I've hit on that a few times, but that's not by accident. A lot of times in the church world, I feel like, and this might be just a gut, but when I feel like when I'm around churches, it feels like there's a pressure that once you get to a certain size, and let's just say it's maybe 1,500, 2,000 people, just throw a number out there. There's this, once you get to a certain place, there's this pressure for the lead pastor or the lead team even to pull away and become less and less accessible. That they've got to, there's nothing, it's exact opposite with Dave. Dave's got 500 staff people. So that's equivalent of maybe running a 50,000 person church. And he is leading every meeting. He's at our devotions that we have every Wednesday morning. He's involved in meetings all day long, every day. And he does a 3-hour radio show in the office every day. He is very, very engaged. He's doing off-site meetings with our personalities. He's doing board meetings. He's having people over to his house. He is very, very engaged. And I guess if I were to encourage any lead pastors out there, I don't think there's a time where you need to disengage from people. When you're trying to teach a crusader mindset and changing the world, by you pulling away, it's actually saying something contradictory to what you're saying. So you just got to be careful with that.
That's so good. So good. So what's on the horizon for you guys? What's next in your work?
Well, for me personally, I think we're trying to get the radio show to, once we go from 30 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and kind of build from there. Go from 20 radio stations around the country to 30, 40, 50. The team's working on that now. Of course, just really the whole idea is not necessarily whether a book is on the horizon or whether it's more speaking engagements or radio stations. The idea is reclaiming stewardship. We just want to make sure, however the word gets out there, it's more about the message than it is the amount of opportunities. So if it's a book, it's a book. If it's more radio stations, it's more radio stations. But I would say none of those things are off the table. I think we're exploring all of those things, whether it be a book, different speaking events, or more radio stations. Whatever the venue is, we want to make sure that we're harnessing technology and opportunities.
And I believe you guys are actually contributing toward making a marked change. I mean, credit card debt nationally is going down, isn't it?
Yeah, but not as much as we would like. For instance, we are excited about some pretty big accomplishments. We just had a church in Palm Beach, Florida, take their entire church through Financial Peace University, and in 9 weeks they cut up 13,000 credit cards.
That's awesome.
So Palm Beach right now, as you're listening to this podcast, there's 13,000 less credit cards in Palm Beach, and we love that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, as you're doing your show and you get call-ins, what are some of the more common things people call in about?
Normally it's about what's in the Christian radio, my show versus Dave. I get a lot of questions about tithing. Do I tithe? Is it Old Testament, New Testament? Is it gross versus net? A lot of those questions. And then, of course, how do I get out of debt? Those are the main two. But, of course, we get 401k questions. We get any kind of wealth building questions. We get all that. College funding. What's the best way to get through college without borrowing? Those kind of things.
And if I'm a pastor out there listening and I want to increase the amount of giving that's coming into the church, what can we do or access through you or Ramsey Solutions that would help us on that path?
Yeah, we strongly believe that you're going to see a move in the needle when it comes to giving when you more consistently financially disciple, not from the platform, but eyeball to eyeball, kneecap to kneecap, where you not only can tell people to give, but you're going to teach people how. How do you position yourself so that you can be in a position to cheerfully give? it's like, when you just do it from the platform, it's like going into a gym, having the trainer stand in the corner on a stage and tell you to work out hard and just say, go for it, lose weight, get in shape. But you need someone to come over and teach you how to do that extra rep. It could be right there beside you to teach you good form. And so it's both. And so I would encourage every church in America to have some kind of stewardship ministry and have some kind of stewardship director or pastor, paid or unpaid, but somebody who owns this idea of financial discipleship. Many people have great intentions in America to give and to go to baptism events, to serve, but being intentioned for ministry is nothing without being positioned for ministry.
And most of our listeners may know, because it is very common among churches we work with. We work with churches we just placed a pastor at a church where the Easter attendance is 90. Easter, 90. And then we work with churches of a bajillion. So, and we work with churches that are white and black and all colors and ethnicities mixed in together. There are very few common denominators. One is Financial Peace University. FPU is all over the place with our clients. Talk to us just a little bit about that in case there's some folks out there who don't know what that is and how they can access it.
So Financial Peace University has been around for about 20 years, and 4 million people have gone through it. 2.5 million couples or families have gone through it. And the average person that goes through Financial Peace University through this 9-week class, which is like 18 hours of your life, it's only 63 days, experiences an $8,000 turnaround in their finances. Because of behavior change, because of intensity, because of a hyper focus on getting your finances right and getting a worldview and a belief system down, there are huge changes in their life. They pay off $5,700 in debt during that time, and they save they save $2,700. They pay off $5,300. So it's $8,000 swing in their finances. How do they do that? They're selling things. They're taking an extra job. They're doing whatever they can. And so they put themselves in a better position. Financial Peace University is in 40,000 plus churches. And it's just a tremendous resource. God's using it in a powerful way.
And just to be clear, it's a class that can be taken individually, or a church can offer it at their church so that people can go through as a movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called Momentum. And the goal is to take 80% of your church through it. And several very respectable large churches are doing that right now. We're super excited to have Christ Fellowship Palm Beach has just finished. New Spring launches Momentum in January. Calvary Fort Lauderdale is starting in January. Christ Fellowship Miami. So they're seeing a lot of progress in this. And the Christ Fellowship Palm Beach example, they're just their staff paid off $50 million in debt when they went through it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I know at our company, we require people to have either gone through it recently or go through FPU before they can come work for us, because I think, and this is important, leaders, if you're listening, if you've got staff people or key volunteers who are up to their neck in debt, they're not giving you 100% of their effort. They're worried about debt like Chris, you could probably give me like statistics or examples, but they're not focused on their job. They're worried about whether they're going to make things work or not. Is that an overstatement, Chris, or what would you say to that?
And I would just go, I would go one step further and say that it's not that you're, as a lead pastor, or maybe you're an executive leader and you're listening to this, you're feeling weight for their finances, feeling like you're not paying them enough, when the bottom line is it isn't the income problem, it's their outgo problem. And so you don't need to feel that pressure, and you can relieve that pressure if you put them through some financial discipleship on the front end. The average American is spending $1.26 for every $1 they earn. Over a third of American adults are currently in the debt collection process, and 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. If one paycheck doesn't show up, there's an issue. And so if you can get on the front end of this, then you as a leader you don't have to feel that pressure.
That's awesome. It will free up your mind, and it'll free up your soul. And I'll tell you what, we don't have people, back when I was running churches, there was always that staff person who really always needed a raise or always needed a little extra. And it's like you said, I could have paid them, $100,000. It wouldn't have been enough, because the issue is not on the intake, it's on the outflow. So if you can encourage your teams, just your key leaders even, to go through FPU, to spend some time working on their personal finances, I think you're going to find higher productivity. And then also they're going to tithe back to the church, because that's something that they're going to discover and learn to enjoy.
Yeah, when you about the tithing, average person who graduates from Financial Peace University immediately starts giving 1% more than they were before. Doesn't really move the needle for churches tremendously when it's only 2 couples going through. But when you got 80% of your church going through, it's a tremendous move in your bottom line. Of course, that's your secondary motive. Your primary motive is changing their lives. But in the second year, so after 12 months, they started giving 2.9% more. So do the math on that, leaders. 80% of your church giving 3% more, it definitely moves the needle.
That's great. Chris, we're moving toward the end of our time, and we always ask every one of our guests a few questions in common to just hear how things are going. One is, tell me something that you're reading or have read recently that has really just blessed you. And it doesn't have to be a leadership book. I mean, please don't say good to great, because that's what everybody says. What are you reading that's fun or that's enriched you or helped you as a leader or a person?
Well, I turned 38 recently, which I know is really young compared to you. I couldn't help but do that. But anyway, I've got my eye on leaving a legacy. I've got an 11-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And I just keep thinking about what I'm going to leave them, not just financially, but integrity, character. Are they going to be able to handle any kind of wealth if I pass it to them? So there's this book, Legacy Journey, that Dave wrote. It's his latest book. That's really messing with my mind. Like, I'm really digging in there. It's the biblical reason for leaving a legacy. It's the spirituality to it instead of just numbers. It's really been challenging me in a lot of ways. So that's been definitely the read I've been doing, reading a lot lately.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit about where you guys are in church. I know Holly, your wife, has been in ministry for many years and is in ministry now, right?
She is. Her and I were executive pastors together down in South Florida for a long time. And then we moved up here, and now I'm with Ramsey Solutions. And she is an executive pastor at Crosspoint Church with Pastor Pete Wilson. And she's really, really enjoying it. There's a 3-person executive team there that they work so well together. There's one over creative, one over operations, and she's over multi-site and expansion.
That's fantastic. So moving to Nashville, did you have to learn to play an instrument, or did...
Thank God I didn't, because my wife and I are the farthest thing from musical. It's embarrassing, but we can appreciate good music.
So one question we ask all leaders, and this podcast is listened to most frequently on Mondays and Tuesdays, and a lot of times, if you remember from your time in ministry, Mondays is not a fun day for pastors. Everybody's depressed. It's the number one day we get resumes coming in from people ready to jump off a cliff or quit their job. And, we try and encourage them a little bit by saying, hey, we're all human. So we ask every guest, tell us a time that you really just kind of blew it from the stage. Just, oops, I said the wrong thing. Can you think of something that comes to mind?
Oh, the list is long. Yeah, the Holy Hangover Mondays are pretty brutal. The thing that comes to my mind the fastest is I was actually down in South Florida, and part of my interview process was to do the welcome. I was a campus pastor, and I was moving to Miami to be a campus pastor at a different church. And just part of the last step of the process was to make sure that I could handle the stage. So I went up and did kind of a guest welcome. And my whole job was to maybe announce 2 things and to take the offering. And I flat out forgot the offering on an interview, which was hilarious. So everyone was, let's see, what happened? They were all sitting down. I told them to all sit down. And then I realized that I was walking off stage and we were transitioning. I said, everybody stand back up. Everyone stand back up. We got to make sure that I said something on the fly of we want to make sure you're standing up, so we got to take the offering. We want to make sure you can reach your wallet easier. So I did something funny, but I was so embarrassed. And I think if you forget to do the offering, you're pretty bad.
So from forgetting to do the offering to leading the church initiative at Dave Ramsey, this is Chris Brown. And thanks so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate how you're investing your life in expanding the kingdom.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast with Chris Brown. Be sure to go over to Vandercast.com to download your free guide to annual giving statements. That's Vandercast.com.